if I'm the best I can be, then I can be the best for everyone else. That would be my students whenever I'm a teacher, or my patients whenever I'm a doctor.
Walk me through a day in the life of Corey.
A day in the life of Corey now. Well, so my days are pretty much the same for weekdays. I wake up around 6 a.m. every single morning. I get up, I take a shower, I eat breakfast, and then I pick up my laptop, put everything I need to into my backpack, and I go and actually student teach over at the University Laboratory School on LSU. So I'll student teach from 7 a.m. That's when I arrive. Student teach from 7 a.m. all the way to 3 p.m. every single weekday. So that's 40 hours a week. Once I come home, that's when things start to shift depending on what occurred that day, or depending on if I have another class. So on Mondays, I'll have class from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. 3 hours. I can count. So 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. I have class on Mondays. On Tuesdays, I have class from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I would be working on my thesis from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then that'll be my weekday. And then my weekend would be me either grading or creating lesson plans I'll teach in the following week for my units, or just in my teaching class over at the lab school. But that's basically my life, and it repeats every week.
It sounds like an amazingly stable life, at least.
It it is. It has its intricacies, but for the most part, I know what I'm doing next week. It will be somewhere along that ballpark.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all we can hope for, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, and then on the weekend, I work I work 8 hours as a LDA for night shifts. Forgot to mention that.
Yeah. So, like, what does a lesson plan look like for you?
A lesson plan for me depends on who's making it. When I'm making the lesson plan, because I teach in my mentor's classroom, we do sixth grade science over at the lab school. So in the unit that we're going through now, we're going through energy. We follow the 5E instructional inquiry based learning setup for lesson planning. So we start with an engagement activity. That could be a warm up that just gets students appreciating and thinking about what we're going to be discussing that day, or it could be a warm up based on the previous day. That's kind of where my leeway is in making sure we're hitting important concepts in the classroom and or reviewing important concepts. But we have an engagement activity, and then we have an explore activity where we go through either some video or just some activity where students get to mess with materials and have their inner child just come out and just see these phenomenons that occur in class, especially with energy. Whenever we're messing with, we just had some catapults and turning a crank for some electricity, and just all these sorts of different things, and that really sparks into an explanation about that activity. What's going on? What are we talking about here? Oh, mechanical energy. Ooh, that's cool, guys. This is what it is. Bam. So, and after we get into and explain, now we have elaborates as well, but elaborates, when I make elaborations, that's usually whenever we have a full lab day. So that's when our lessons extend to a second day. So we just had an energy lab last Friday where we got to explore 6 different forms of energy at different stations. Whole period. It was actually 2 days. It blew my mind, but the kids had a lot of fun with it, and that's really what goes into a lesson. And at the end, I do some sort of evaluation. That'll be exit tickets or graded assignment or what have you. So that'll be like that's just one lesson. I've done like 10 of them so far that I've made, but I've also taught my mentors lessons as well because I've been student teaching. I just hit 200 hours this today, so it's been some time. Yeah, 200,
Nice.
180 is the state requirement. 200 is for go teach, but I'm still pushing on forward. Yeah, that's just that goes into a lesson. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Dude, that is awesome. That's also like really impressive.
Thank you. It's also a lot of work. It
Could
was
not
so
imagine.
much involved, but it's awesome. And teaching the students, it made me have a much greater appreciation for both my students and just teachers in general. Because I didn't realize there was so much work involved, And then I started being the teacher. I was like, oh my goodness, grading? What? But it's awesome though. It is.
I love it. And you enjoy it. And that's important.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. It's tiring, of course,
Yeah.
but that comes with everything. Everything's tiring. But it is awesome. It is awesome. Thing I love most about it, I think, is really just interacting with my students. Like, great group of kids and just conversing with them. They have so many ideas, it's insane. And they just barrage you with questions. Like, we were in a space student last time, we were talking about the solar system, and we were going over the nebular hypothesis, when the solar system's forming, and then all of a sudden they're like, let's talk about blood moons. And I'm like, we'll save that for later. But and then you bring it back, and then you bring it back up later into lesson, and they're like, "Oh my god, he remembered!" And it's awesome. Or it's those things I really love. Those conversations, those that interpersonal communication. I absolutely love that.
So, like, kind of going back to teachers, let's kind of go back a bit. Talk to me about home. Like, if you took us home right now, what are we seeing? What are we doing? What is home to you?
Um, Home as in LSU home or my home back home?
Your home
LSU.
back home.
Oh, my home back home.
Mhm.
Well, my home back home. Uh, it's nothing like college. Um, there's a lot more hardship with that with my family, um, which is something that I realized when going into COVID. I didn't being here at LSU. I'm separated from my family. My family's in Georgia. They moved out there when I went to LSU, so I've been alone this whole time. But I fly out there for the summers, and I'm only there for a brief short, period of time. But with COVID, whenever that bomb went off, the COVID bomb went off at LSU back in March, I ended up having to go back home because of that. And when I was there, it made me really realize just it really made me think about the situation that they were in, and none of them have college educations, or none of them have careers either. So seeing the situation that they were in and how bad it was over there. Like, they have a home. Don't get me wrong. They're living, but they're basically living check by check. And if something were to occur in the family, like if my mom suddenly just couldn't bring in any money in the home, like they're gonna sink. It's a boat that just doesn't have it. They're working with paddles. So I didn't really realize that until the COVID hit, and I had to go back home, and I got to see how much that stress of COVID was putting on my family. My mom lost her job at her restaurant, and my stepdad, he was just chucking on his own train. But if he got taken out, then that'd be it. He was the last straw. So that really made me consider taking a gap year, which is what I'm going to do now, and at least be there for them in Georgia for at least a year. Which, when it comes to teaching, I'm getting my Go Teach certificate, and it makes me glad that I started Go Teach in my freshman year, because I started it with this intent that I'm medical, I'm pre med, but if I needed the fallback, I could fall back on teaching because I do enjoy teaching. And now that I'm here, now COVID, it was that event that I wasn't sure was going to happen. I would have guessed, but if it fell in those lines, and I might actually utilize this teaching degree and be there for my family. So that's back home for me though. That is back home. It's hardship, but I love my family. We do love each other, but it's hardship.
Yeah. No, trust me, I'm right there with you. Only child of a single mom. COVID hit, and it's just like, well, shit. If I get COVID and I give it to mom, then we're fucked because she's literally the only one with income, and she takes care of my neighbors who, like, her mom has heart failure. So if I get it and I spread it there, that's like three people. who are now at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another factor to consider even with my student teaching. Like whenever this semester started, COVID was a thing, phase
Yeah.
3 and everything. But there was no like set plan of, hey, this is what would happen. Like if you get sick, they're like, we'll figure it out. Well, halfway through this semester, we got my certificate is certified through the state, and the state requires us to have a minimum number of hours to complete our student teaching, and we need teaching hours to do that. Well, the hours that we need is 180 teaching hours and like 270 in class hours. Now I've shot through the roof with that, but the reason is because if I got COVID, then I'd be out for at least 2 weeks. That 14-day period. So
Yeah.
I'd miss 10 days, and that's a massive. That's like 80 hours to miss right there in
Mm.
one sitting. So we were wondering what was going to go on with that, like what would be the repercussions, or like what's the saving grace. But halfway through the semester, we got an email through the head of our department saying that they got word from the Department of Education, I believe it was, for the state, that there was no mercy there. If you didn't get it, you weren't getting your degree, you weren't getting your certificate. So I'm glad I got my hours. Like you don't that's not a small thing at this point because you'd be shooting for 200 at the end of December, but I've fast tracked my whole situation. And then the hurricanes. The hurricanes were another thing.
Yeah. Three
Uh,
of them.
Half days, days missing, those are hours all gone. So, but that's me. I'm a cautious person. I don't really like risk. So whenever I see impending doom, I like to, do something about it before it's impending. But my peers are still along the regular track, so they're probably going to be teaching longer than I will, simply because they didn't prepare. And I'm not sure if any of them have COVID or have gotten COVID and had to quarantine, but that's just another factor that it's just all of its stress. At any moment it could be like, ah, got me. You know, so all it's stressful. It's stressful. A lot goes into it with this whole COVID situation.
Actually, like, especially for teaching, how has what you've done changed between like January to March when the bomb pretty much hit to now? Like, how has that process changed?
A lot has changed. So when I started teaching in August actually, because before then, before COVID, I was teaching in just a classroom in person setting. Before COVID, it was normal teaching. But when this semester started, we started uh, full virtual. Full virtual. Everyone was online. I had to figure out how to make a Google Classroom and do Moodle and figure out how do I instruct online to 30 students who may or may not want to listen. How do I make sure they have the material? And the drawback of that, which is it's not just what I experienced, but everyone has experienced as teachers, is that we just can't move through the material as fast. So everyone is behind. That first unit was longer than it should have been for everyone. So education right now, as in general, is behind from what it should be. And we've been trying to fast track it since then. My unit is shorter than it should be because we're hitting the main points of it. But even now, when we're approaching Thanksgiving in December, we're still going to be leaving some material behind. Well, we're not gonna leave material behind, but we're having to catch up still, is what I'm getting at. But yeah, so we started at virtual phase 3, and then we went into hybrid for some time, and now in my school at least, because we are more of a private school, it's technically public and private. It has its own weird situation since it's owned by LSU, but we're mostly in person. I have one student who's virtual now. Everyone was given the option to return, and almost everyone did. Um, but then switching from all virtual to hybrid to now almost all in person, it has been the biggest shift ever. I've seen teachers over at the school, my mentor teacher included, that have basically been like, they're like, this is basically the first day of us teaching all over again because we got to refigure out how to teach everything, the whole 9 yards, you know. So it's been a journey, but we're getting there.
Yeah. We're making it, hopefully.
Yeah, we are definitely making it.
Yeah. It's really all we can hope for at this point to make it. How well we make it is up for debate, but
That is definitely true. That's definitely true. I know some of my student teacher peers, they're not doing as well, but
yeah.
the only answer I could say is prepare more. That's there's nothing else to say. I know that sounds cold, but it's kind of the situation. Reality comes in.
Yeah. So going back to August, what was your first week like of like fall, basically?
My first week was me figuring. All right, so student teaching actually starts before school starts, like before LSU starts. So I believe LSU started August 26th or so.
Sounds
My
about
class started August 1st.
right. Okay.
So I had 20 days ahead of y'all. My first week when I came to LSU though was me getting situated in my apartment, me sorting out all the new things that are involved with COVID. Because as I stated, I am an LDA with Res Life, figuring out what are the procedures that LSU is doing, what's a part of that tracking plan that LSU has, and what are the things that I need to do as an employee for LSU, and then what are things that I need to do in regards to my school, because student teaching is basically one huge internship, right? So what are their regulations and stuff? What's going on here? So my first week was really just a bunch of tracking or working out how do I deal with COVID. That was like what my first week actually was, and then meeting my mentor, getting with him, seeing how the class was, and then introducing myself to them. Hey, I'm your student teacher. I'll be taking over classes gradually as the semester goes, and that sort of thing. But half of it was COVID related, half of it was me just, introducing myself to the whole situation, jumping on board. And then I didn't even talk about my other classes. That was just student teaching.
Yeah.
My other classes, it was all figuring out how to do Zoom, doing online calls, and figuring out how to do a class online and not end up sleeping through it because you don't have to walk anywhere. Which is, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of cool, but it comes with its flaws when you're trying to take material in and it's not a lecture, it's more of just a PowerPoint that you flip through on your screen. And then you're like, so is this information important? Is that information? I got this book over here. Where, teacher? Oh, where are you? Oh, okay. So that's been a struggle on its own, just working through Zoom calls for presentations and such. But tit for tat, I suppose.
So when you were like scheduling these classes, did you even think it would end up like this? Like being so much online and just so like weird, or did you factor that in when you scheduled?
Uh, I figured that back in the previous semester. The moment the COVID bomb went off, 100% figured. Now, all I'd say is that with the student teaching, since I'm in that private school setting, we have the option of doing in person, which I didn't think was going to be an option. I figured we were just going to be online the entire time. So that's actually been a change, which it's a good change for me as a teacher. We haven't had a we've ha- have really good regulations at the school, so we haven't had an outbreak, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I did factor that in. In fact, my later classes, one of them is my thesis course. Uh, I talked with my professor and like prior to, because she's my mentor, she's been my mentor for 2.5 years now. So I talked with her, we discussed, and we're going to be like, yeah, it's going to be online. It's not going to come in person. If you need anything, I'm always here for you. Because, my mentor, she's Dr. Ulysses Johnson, best person ever. 100%. Go to her office. Don't go to her office, just joking. But 100% best mentor ever. I love her. She's helped me out with so many things. And yeah, we figured it was going to be an online course because of the whole situation. And that's exactly what it turned out to be. But one thing I didn't think was going to happen is I'm a researcher here at LSU, so I didn't think about the fact that going to the lab, we would have restrictions being in the lab. So it's two people in the lab at a time, and you have to schedule
Yeah.
those times.
Mhm.
Typically, we could have, when going in, you just go in and do your research. And that's how I always did. Like before COVID, it was I would run to my classes, and in between the classes, I'd run and go check my flies because I do genetic sleep research for sleep deprivation and oversleep.
Okay.
So I would go run in, check my flies, see how they're going, do crosses if I need with the flies, and then I run out. And then at 6 p.m. I go run back in or something. But I can't do that anymore with COVID. I can't just come and go as I please to do my experiment as needed. So that in itself was like, whoa. So I had to change my entire thesis because of that. Because I in genetic research you have to really be on top of things, and but there are moments when your flies haven't bred when they should. Just there's a lot of factors that go into that, temperature and whatnot. But for the most part, when they haven't bred when they should, and you have a limited time period of gathering virgin females or males, and you have to synchronize populations, and then your time limit's up, you got to go. Someone else is they got a spot coming in, but you don't have your flies. That really puts stress on your experiment, you know. So I ended up having to change my entire honors thesis from one sleep model that was focusing on sleep deprivation to several sleep models. And thankfully, I had done the experiments already in the previous semester. So I had all the data, like over 100,000 data points. But
Holy.
yeah, it was a lot to go through. But thankfully, I had that data. I created optogenetic tools for my research because there was going to be other experiments to go on for in the lab. But I had to change my thesis from one sleep model to multiple sleep models because just how the cards played, just how the cards played out.
I'm like still amazed by like the sleep deprivation study and flies. Like
Yeah, it honestly, I started it. I can talk about it if you want.
I'm
It's
so
so
fascinated,
cool.
honestly. Like
It's so interesting. So for my research, when I was going through it, I started this. I just went into her office, Dr. Johnson's office. I just went to her office, and we are having a mini discussion because I knew I like whenever I see something impending, I like to handle it immediately.
yeah.
So at the start of my sophomore year, I went and joined the honors college, and then they told me the requirements of the honors college was I was going to have to write a thesis. So in that same semester, when I joined the honors college, I was like, all right, thesis director, where you at? So I went and found Dr. Johnson, and we just started opening up a conversation, and we ended up talking about sleep because I don't know, I do night shifts, I still do night shifts, and we were just talking about sleep, and she's like, all right, yeah, we can get you on some sleep. Let's do some genetics. You just passed genetics. Let's do it. So I ended up doing genetics research for the next 2.5 years, and sleep deprivation was the core of it. I've learned so much about it, that there's negative physiological aspects to it. With sleep deprivation, you would expect that. But what we're trying to explore now is if you can counterbalance those negative consequences to like all cause mortality, the longevity scale to that. Because when you have sleep deprivation, like chronic sleep deprivation, it reduces your longevity, your
Mhm.
lifespan. So we were going to see if that could be counterbalanced through enhanced lysosomal activity. So lysosomes are the little organelles that basically help your body maintain its well just maintenance, clear up any debris or whatnot that's in your body, clear up the trash that's occurring within your body from metabolic activity. So we're going to see if that was going to improve it and counterbalance the negative effects, but I just never got to that end of the research. That's what my honors thesis was going to be about, but now it's just on optogenetic tools that I created along the way, which I made like 8 of them.
Dude, that's awesome. Like just
Yeah,
make freaking tools for sleep deprivation. Okay. Subtle flex, but okay.
yeah, it's super cool. Oh, and off the genetics, it all works off of light too. I shine a light on them, blue light specifically, makes the whole thing go. You can turn the light on to make them go to sleep as well. We have flies that do that. It's so cool. I had no idea you could use it, even use light for genetics. It's insane. Yeah, that's my research though. Welcome to it.
Like, I mean, that makes sense. Like phones have the blue light filter to help with sleep, so I see it. This is such a tangent that I just got interested in. I'm so sorry. Or,
Yeah, sorry, I just went off. I said research. It just my bad.
no, it's my fault because like it sounds so interesting, and I'm like, ooh, I want to learn more. This is an interview. Okay, so kind of going back to research and school. When you were in high school, what motivated you to pick the path you're on? And now, as a senior, why did you stick with it?
That's a really good question. So in high school, I I think motivated is a really harsh term for me. It or not harsh, but like hard, because in high school I just figured things were gonna work out. Like I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was just like I happened to be smart. I just got all my grades in. I got my 3.5. I'm satisfied. And once I get my degree, $1 million is gonna come with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
super exaggerated, but that's where my head was at. I was like, once I get the degree, high school degree, I'm gonna be rolling in money. That's not how it works.
No.
So after I got my degree and realized that was the reality of it was just the paper, and I was like, oh, okay. I went home. I really started to contemplate my future. Like I had thought about it before, but it wasn't until that smack of reality that was like, all right, impending doom. Let me figure this situation out. So within the next month, I sat down and I sorted out what was it in the past I was interested in, right? What were my interests? What was I good at? And I was good at math, but I was interested in science and I taught for since ninth grade. I was a all tutor and teacher's pet all the way from ninth grade onwards, and that's where teaching came from. So once I sorted out that science was my ordeal, that's what I wanted to be a part of, I stumbled into biology. It was like, all right, what of the science? Chemistry? I'm not good at application. Biology, I love biology. Biology is my thing. Teaching my thing too. I've been doing it for some time. I enjoyed talking with people and communicating. So that's where the whole high school end of things came from. That's where I got set on my path. And then I went to LSU and got a full ride. So I just stuck with it. Got to LSU. I got into student teaching, go teach, because I joined some job or some fair. I don't even remember the type of fair, but they were handing out flyers. Join, go teach. I was like, yes, sounds like my alley. So I joined that, went to biology, and then I stuck through it this entire time because again, that's what I enjoyed in the past. So I enjoy it now. I still enjoy it. That's kind of my core is biology. I absolutely love how systems work. I love I've learned what I really love about it though. It's not just biology, but biochemistry really fascinates me. How the body interacts with molecules, and I love the idea of just molecules interacting with each other, mechanisms of the body. And then if you introduce other mechanisms or other molecules, how those affect the body. That's sort of side of biology. That's what I'm really interested in. So that leads me. So if we're thinking about after college, that would be more of where that whole medical side comes from. Because I'm actually really curious about how drugs affect the body. So I don't know if that's pharmacy or an anesthesiologist, but right now I'm shooting for anesthesiologist. And then I've just stuck with it because that's what I'm interested in. It's what I'm good at biology. It's been a really tough road though, like really tough. But I am not one to back down. I take on a challenge. If I hear something, I don't want to regret a moment. So I came in as a traditional. Then I went to the science college, and then my sophomore year I went to honors college. Then I heard about CXC, distinguished communicator. So I joined distinguished communicator. Then I knew I needed to get honors thesis, so I went and joined a lab. Then I heard in the lab that there was something called a distinguished undergraduate researcher. So then I joined that. So it's just been I want to do everything that I can, be the best me that I can be, because then I could help my community really, if I'm the best I can be. If I'm the best I can be, then I can be the best for everyone else. That would be my students whenever I'm a teacher, or my patients whenever I'm a doctor. So that's exactly how I view life, and I've been striving for that ever since high school.
I'm like at a loss because that's so like amazing and commendable. That's awesome. Like as
Thank you.
a major, I have no like words to describe how amazing that is and how you are. Like
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I hope I grow up and be like you one day. Not quite there, but we're getting there.
Yeah, no, you don't want to grow up and be like me. I don't. I have a gut. I need to work out a bit more, eat more salads. I
I mean,
always got to shoot better.
yeah, body is a temporary. That drive and that want to be better, that's a little bit more permanent.
Well, I think you're an amazing individual. Come on, Dom. Like, don't short sell yourself. Come on now. You've been supporting me this whole semester for getting back from student teaching, and then I got my thesis work after, or got my job. You were the one there for me, so thank you. You are awesome, Dom.
Thank you. I try. I mean, I reflect, y'all. Like you're awesome, and I need you to know that. So I reflect that.
You have to know that. If you don't, write it on a wall.
It'll be like written on a rock, and I'll just throw it at your window. Like Court, you're awesome.
When it busts, you're the one paying for it. Just letting you know.
You know, casualties they exist.
Casualties. Where's life? It was the hurricane. Which one? One of them.
All of them.
All of them. All of them did it. We repaired it in the middle, and then it broke again. That's why there's little pieces, not big pieces.
Exactly. Exactly. But okay. So summer, right? It was interesting between like a pandemic, but also civil unrest, but also like misinformation. Kind of a mess. But like, and you kind of talked about this on a personal level. How was summer 2020 different or the same for you than like summer 2019, 2018, and on and on?
It was a lot different. Like, a lot different. So I went back with my family as usual. However, because of the whole COVID situation, there was a lot of tension in my house. So just dealing with family members was not like dealing with family members a year ago. Because my mom, as I stated, she had lost her job, and we needed to figure out a way to build that income. But also, my stepdad, he wasn't really satisfied because he had to pick up more weight, he had to do more regulations, all sorts of things. So that was stress on everyone. It was not a fun time. I went again to my family. Same. That was the same as previous years, but just being there was a lot more. It was a lot more difficult. I ended up starting a business over there with my mom, because she had to, we had to sort out some way to get income. So she actually goes and makes shirts now, and she makes like handcrafted objects. She loved making stovetop covers. That's what she's doing now. She swapped some shirts, but I ended up helping her with that to pull in money for like Mother's Day and whatnot, Father's Day, those sorts of holidays. And that wasn't something we had to even be concerned about in the previous year, right? She had her job, he had his job, and everyone was fine. They'd come home and we'd have, you know, normal family happy times. But COVID brought with it too much stress, too much stress. So, and now I'm considering a gap year for it. I not considering, I am doing a gap year for it. Like, it was a lot, still a lot.
What type of like what does she craft other than shirts?
So we were making when I was over there, we were making shirts and we were making like plaques that went with the shirts, so you can have Mother's Day shirts. You put your mom on the plaque. We were also making wood plaques as well. So we had glass ones, we had wood plaques with writing on it for the family members. We were decorating hammers and etching designs in hammers. But now she's moved on to like uh soldering boards and creating stovetop covers. So she's made an arrangement of things. Well, we have made an arrangement of things. Whenever you go to like Hobby Lobby or something and you see that massive fence board that says welcome on it and you put it in front of your house and it has a cool little reef on it, that's the sort of things we made. And we're making good money off it, not gonna lie. But it was a lot of work. It was like 14 hours a day. Like it was more work than I do in my actual job. Just to basically break even for that and rent.
That is that's so cool. They're like handcrafted.
Yeah, I have a ton of pictures for it because I was gonna make up a whole website for it. It's actually I have a website for me for like my online portfolio for CXC, but on one of the pages I have it specifically for online orders because when I had set it up back way back then, and I have a ton of pictures if you want to see. It's really cool stuff. Oh, and we did mugs and cups too. I forgot about that. But
Would you be willing to send me some of those pictures?
yeah, I would. It was so cool. It was so awesome. And I might end up when I go back, that might be something I do too. Go back to because she's still doing it. I went to college, so
Yeah. Hey guys. Thank you again for listening to episode 2 of the COVID Seniors. I've had a lot of fun interviewing these amazing seniors and seeing what they do post graduation and also in the middle of a pandemic. Like last time, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below and leave a like. And as always, have a great day. Peace.